Welcome to Dancing Through It with your host, Leslie Cooney, a podcast where we share honest conversations about passion, perseverance, and the power of movement. Our guest today is Sherrie Scherger.
Okay, so I'm very excited today. We have Sherrie Scherger, who is a big in my brain, a big human, and then I've kind of gotten to know you a little bit. And
then I'm not so big.
Yeah, it's true. I know. But like we have these ideas of like people and you hear their names and they're working with folks and you kind of like, build them up in your head. And then it's been really nice to connect with you over the last few years. And so maybe we'll just start off with, if you want to, instead of me telling everybody about how amazing you are, which you are, but maybe telling us a little bit about your dance journey, where it started and where it went.
Okay, well, first of all, you're too kind. Thank you for the compliment. And I started, in a family-owned dance studio. My mother was a dancer, professional dancer at that.
Yeah.
Toronto Ballet Company. She told me a story once that she pretty much almost had me in the studio in a rehearsal. Water broke, something along the lines of that.
Yep.
So, me being a dancer just seems like
it was fated. Yeah.
Exactly. That what I was supposed to take. But yeah, and then, family moved to Calgary. And that's where my mom opened a dance studio. And that's pretty much where I grew up. I was born originally from Toronto, and then we moved. Yeah, oh gosh, it is such a journey. There's so many twists and turns, and I'm that type of person who gets caught up in starting to tell who I am and then twist to the right, then veer to the left. And then, so it's hard for me to stay on track because there's so many things that
right.
I have, within that journey.
Of course.
But basically dance family, grew up in the studio, was never pushed to dance. I have to say that, it was always, do it if you love it.
Right.
And actually one of my very first lessons was when my mother pulled me from dance for a year.
Okay. About what age was that at?
So it would have been about 13-ish.
Okay.
Because I was not keeping up with my grades.
Classic. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, it is classic. And good on my mother to teach me the balance.
Right.
You gotta be able to manage. You gotta manage what's going on with your schoolwork, for your education, along with keeping up with your dance. It can't just be that.
Well, and especially I was going to say, like, as the studio owner and director, to be able to, that's a difficult balance to have, to be a dance mom, but then also the business owner, and to say like, look, like, this is how it's going to go down. That's bravo, because it's a very difficult conversation for anyone to have, let alone in that situation.
And can you imagine the gossip?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. And like, I pray for a day where like everyone will go like, there won't be any gossip, and people will be like, yes, that was the right move. Like, that's what we believe in. That's our culture as a studio. So like, we're all on board and nobody needs to have a talk about it. Oh man.
So,
but yes,
I had a parents in which that they were, they were strict, lessons, followed through. That's a big one. They just followed through. And I respect that now. Of course, when you're 13, not so much.
Yeah.
Or even another apparently now, I beg to differ, but apparently I was a little bit difficult to teach when I was younger. So my mother decided to shoot me off to somebody else's ballet classes,
Right.
who happened to be the most amazing Lynette Abra, who is just like fantastic, along with a couple other ballet
Mhm.
teachers. So because my mother couldn't teach me because I wasn't listening. No, that was younger. I was like,
Of course.
I was 9, 10.
But I think that too is very, again, hard to
Yeah.
do, I imagine, as a mother and also as a teacher, because you're like, you kind of want that control, but also to recognize like, I'm maybe not the best fit for this student. Like it would be best for both of us, maybe if they trained with someone else, which I think is 100% valid. And sometimes we don't do that often enough to like recognize that.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
Really
So,
insightful.
it's so many lessons along the way because of parents that followed through with discipline, which then carries over to how I teach, how I direct myself in my own dance career.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I graduated. Okay, I hate to say numbers here, but
Do it. Own it.
I graduated in '84 high school, left the
Yep.
studio, and like literally couldn't wait to get out because
Same.
there's something. I had a great experience. However, within the studio, not everybody does.
Right.
I was very keen. I was very passionate, especially after having been taken away.
Right.
You
Right.
realize how much more you want to pursue it.
Mm-hmm.
So my mother always says you became the more focused, the best dancer, the best. I hate to use the word best. I'm just searching
Right.
for it, but right now it's the best.
But it lit a fire clearly. Like it made you recognize and sort of acknowledge like how important it was to you, and that changed how you showed up in class.
It really did. Definitely made me more present. Made me a better listener. It gave me a drive to start figuring out at 15 years old what I need to do in order to pursue what kind of the versatility of making sure that I'm not getting stuck in just doing it one way, making sure I'm getting different ways. I was doing more workshops. It just kind of just exploded from 15 on for me. It set my path. So
yeah.
And then I went to Grant McEwen.
Oh,
I went to Grant McEwen.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
The folks who are going to watch this are going to get so sick of the amount of times I bring up Grant McEwen. That I didn't know that because I also went to Grant McEwen. But can I ask? I'm doing some mental math. Was it more of pedagogy and teacher training as opposed to performance training when you were there? Oh.
No, see, there were at that time. There was two. There was two. There was the teacher, I believe. I could be wrong.
No.
And I went into the dance training.
You're right.
Performance program.
Okay.
So, but I believe in 84, 85, that was it had only been going for so many years.
Okay.
Like it was the year that Brian Webb left as a teacher there. So, and he was kind of in as a guest teacher, but he was just prior. And I don't know if he came back later.
Yes, because I trained with Brian.
Okay.
Oh, now I feel like I need to do a research paper into the history of the Grant McEwen dance program because I'm so enthralled by this. Okay.
Yeah.
So if Brian wasn't heading it up, who were your primary profs who were you training with at Grant McEwen?
Good question. And here's my problem. The worst memory on I wish we had Facebook back then, just so I could, put down the pictures, and I didn't have time for a journal when I was younger. I didn't do it. It
No.
was, so I want to say Barbara, I can't remember her last name.
Okay. That's
I
okay.
think I want to say Gail was one of the teachers, but no, I can't be. David was one of the ballet teachers. I remember David clearly. I don't think it was David Earl. It was David something else. Anyways, he was truthful with me. That's all I remember.
What's so funny is like that is a lot of the experience of folks from Grandma McEwen. I feel like there's like a thread that goes through where we kind of got a little beaten up for the better, but still it was, I like that, truthful. That's very kind. Those are very kind words to use.
He was if you did not look like it, if you did not walk like it, you are not it.
Right.
That
right.
very much. Kind of what you think of the ballet world is that. And listen, I may talk and say things that, were a little bit people being tough on me and things like that, but I don't take it never as a negative. I'm always see the glass half full type of person. I take it of, okay, well, that person taught me this, even though I might have gotten drilled or not spoken to, or spoken to inappropriately or.
It sounds like, so you have such a great way of framing situations while also acknowledging the reality of them. And just to circle back to sort of this work ethic and these values that it really sounds like your family instilled in you that you then really carried with you as you moved forward. And I think that sort of has that, it sounds like it had a really big impact on your mindset as you kind of like walked through this career.
Very much so. I kind of put the fact that I've had longevity into all of what you just mentioned. All of the above thing. It really factors into again, and that's why I brought up a few lessons of when I was younger. It really does kind of help with I don't know, the word isn't structure, but just that kind of building of what the necessities of what you need in order to be in this world. I mean, in any career, honestly, you could put it towards anything. And those are the tools that you need. Those little life lessons when you're younger, if you're present enough to take it, to take it in. So, I mean, and it's little things along the way, right, Leslie? It's that cliche of saying it's who you meet along the way. Again, it's that person that was a tough on you. It's that person that then praised you, and then it's that person who, really, took you down a few notches. And how do you deal with climbing that self-confidence and climbing up out of it? So it's a whole. When we say journey, it really is a journey. I've had recently. I had an assistant helping me put together some choreography, and she's just starting out, and she's just lovely. You can tell because she's a good listener.
Right.
That's how I could tell, that she really honestly wants to pursue it. The difference of knowing that she's going to do well compared to maybe somebody else is asking is just that.
Right. Yeah.
it is asking the right questions that aren't just about who do I meet, how do I get there, what is. It's more uh, like what happens in this circumstance, or what
Right.
should I do in this, here, or what did you do,
Yeah.
and really listening. And then I always say that was the way I handled it.
Yeah.
Every circumstance is going to be different. So, but here's you can base off of what you heard, or how other people on it, and but then do it your own way. Do it with work.
Yes. Yeah. It sounds like you really value and also see the benefit of dancers who are maybe a little bit more cerebral, who are looking at the big picture and thinking about things maybe a little more logically or with curiosity. I always talk about getting curious because I think that's the best way to like, figure it out is just taking away those value judgments or those sort of narrow ideas of like who do I need to meet or like what company do I need to join or where do I need to be. When you zoom out a little bit and get a little more curious, it gives you more information, but you do have to be a little bit more in your mind as opposed to just like I don't, and again, not painting everybody with a broad brush, but like
Yeah.
where people just sort of like, I just want to dance and tell me where to go, and I just want to, be dancing, and it's like, well, there's more to this sort of life of being an artist. So I'm curious to know because I've only found my like curiosity in terms of figuring stuff out a little bit later. And I didn't realize that it was fueled by my time at post-secondary. But I wonder if there was either when you were at Decidedly Jazz or any other places that you worked that sort of broadened that idea of like, oh, dancers who are smart and are critical thinkers and are looking at this from a bigger lens. Was there a place or a space that sort of instilled that into you that now clearly you're carrying with you?
Yeah, and again, it takes me a while. I'm not one of those. Oh, okay, I get it now.
It's all good. We're all here for the story. I love it.
Right, where it takes a few hits in order for me to go. Oh, why didn't I figure that out 2-3 years ago? But I can see and see the signs people say. Let's see. Okay. Critical thinking. The first one that pops into my mind was my very, very first job in Toronto, musical theater job, who I got hired for. And it was right after kind of Grant McEwen kind of came back home, moved to Toronto, finding my way, and I'm at the bus stop going for an audition, and I have no money. So yeah, I don't have that. I mean, we're that, and God forbid if I phone home and ask, because I got to make it. I got to. I'm doing fine. I'm okay. I can handle it. And I asked this woman at the bus stop, and I said, this is my situation. This is where I'm going. Do you come to this bus stop? Is this your regular? And I said, I promise I will be here the next day to pay you back.
Right.
And went, found out I got it that day. I knew I had it. And I called my mom, and I said, I just, if you could send a little bit just to carry me over to this job.
Right.
Of course, that went the next one. And I slept so good that night.
Of course.
Right then, what does that do? What does that tell you? My management of money was so poor that I never wanted that to happen again. I was embarrassed by it. I was 20.
Yeah.
And Yeah, I was 20 and no, what am I doing? You need to be an adult now. Let's get your poop together. And,
Yeah. Because you
so
feel like an adult at 20, and then you walk through a scenario where you're like, but I'm
that-
not behaving like an adult. There's a
that's right.
mismatch here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was such a hit that I realized that and again, my mom always said it also there's a business side to it. There's a business side to it. She owns a dance studio
Yeah.
that she knows she was a dance. There's a business side. I wasn't listening. I just wanted to dance. I was one of those people, and I just needed to move. But
Yeah.
that there's a lesson in that too. But
Mhm.
yeah, that hit me, and there it was, and did better from now on.
Right.
And did what I needed to do in order for that happen. Did get the job, and and carried on from there.
Yeah.
Then and then after that, at 21, was hired with the fabulous Foley's, Brian Foley.
Yes. Yes.
Choreographer of the musical my first musical that I did.
Okay.
My first job in Toronto was, see, even I'm getting my resume wrong.
Well, when it's as long as like esteemed and like you've been doing it, it does sort of it rolls together, and because you're just living, you
Yeah.
like not that you forget, but you're just focused on sort of
Yeah.
like the next step in front of you in the best possible way. And then when you're asked to look back, you kind of go like, hold on a minute. So I get it.
Yeah, it really is. Like, that's why I say I want Facebook not for the social media of it, just for the fact that it'll line me up on what came after what.
Yeah.
The reason why I first went to Toronto was, and I tell this story when I adjudicate sometime, was my first job for out east was because of an adjudicator who wrote on the sheet. Now, I don't know if it was politically correct, but wrote on the sheet, please come and see me after the competition.
It's nice that they did right after the competition.
Right after the competition, I went with my mom.
Yeah.
This was a adjudicator.
Yeah.
So that made it, just a little bit, okay, what's going on here?
Right. Yeah.
And he offered me a job on this kind of show that he was doing on these ships, the harbor ships.
Amazing.
So I know, I pinch myself sometimes when I look back, because if that adjudicator wouldn't have, given me that note on that sheet.
Yeah.
And so this is what I tell dancers: what you never know
who's true
and who can do what for you. This great judge who gave me this opportunity, who saw something in me, just how old are you? Can you come? Can we hire?
Yeah.
Great. And that's what first brought me out to Toronto, and got the ball rolling there.
Yeah.
It was an easy kind of transfer too, because my mom being from there originally.
Right. There's a familiarity. It's not like totally terrifying, but you hit on something that I think is not, I don't think it's necessarily unique to the dance world, but I know that it happens very frequently and it feels a bit like movie magic, but you're walking proof that it happens is someone sees you and it gets the ball rolling. And I have a love-hate relationship with the idea of it's not always what you know and what you can do, but who you know sometimes and who sees you. And that can sometimes feel a bit alienating if you're not in the like circle. So I think it can create some animosity, but it's true. Like I have so many gigs that I've received just because somebody knows me, right? And they remember you or they saw you one time. And so it's, yeah, it feels very movie-ish, but like, that's exactly how you started.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but that's exactly what it was.
Yeah. It's like we saw this girl in the mall and then we like, and you go, that doesn't happen in real life, but it can, right? And, or at least, like, let's say, if we play it out a little bit differently, maybe, you weren't old enough to go work and do that job or whatever, timing didn't work, but then you have a connection. That's exactly right. You're building your network, which can be a bit of an itchy word. I don't really like it, but I like connection. I like thinking about connection more than like networking or like, cause that feels itchy. I just prefer to be like, I'm just gathering, connections of people. So now that we've had a chance and I'm like hearing all these like very like wise stories and like wisdom that you've learned, it makes total sense to me that when we connected to think about what we were going to talk about today, or sort of have a bit of a thesis statement, for lack of a better word, was gold. And now I'm like, oh, this is all clicking as to why like Sherrie felt like, oh, and it's funny. I want to make sure people know Sherrie messaged and said, I have an idea, but it doesn't seem that exciting. And I'm like, well, dance is exciting enough. And sometimes like we need to talk about the quote unquote boring stuff because that's the piece of the puzzle that we maybe doesn't come as naturally to us. At least for myself, I can say that. And yeah, you mentioned talking about setting goals. The word goal makes me feel a certain way. That's my own stuff. But so when you said that, I was like, oh, this is going to be really fun to dig into, and how maybe for some folks who feel the same way I do, where I'm like, I don't like a goal because what if I don't do it? Perfectionism, type A life. But the reality is, if you don't set goals, then you're kind of just treading water, and it can be tricky in an arts career to set goals because there's a lot that's out of your control sometimes. So I'm just so excited for you to dig in and talk to us about how you do set goals and how you look at them as an artist and how you use them to propel your career forward.
Right. I think my perception of goal, obviously, and yours is just really black and white. It's different because when I say goal, it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to,
right.
At least I made the effort to get towards it.
Oh my gosh. Yes. We just have to, you made the effort. I feel like Oprah right now where I have to go like, I think that's such a great perspective shift.
Yeah.
It's not it's not a win or lose. It's I'm making an effort in this direction.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And so, and that's something I've had with me ever since, when I was a competitive dancer. Now, when I say competitive dancer, competitions were not like they are now.
It was so different. I know.
It was so different. Nobody can even understand, I think, anymore at how little. It was more the festivals. It was more Kiwanis. I think the biggest what we would call competitions were all called festival, Alberta Dance Festival, the BC Provincial.
Wild Rose Dance Festival. I got a couple medals from there for sure.
That was my scholarship. I swear to God, I got a scholarship from them because they were trying to kick me out and get me going out. I'm just joking. I love
it. I'll take it. Fine. Great. Thank you.
I remember going back, the first time being asked to go and adjudicate for them, after so many years.
Of course.
Having that moment of, this was my first, with air quotes. And listen, hey, I'm a competitive person. I'm going to be honest about that. I'm reaching for that. Like, I really want to beat out the other people I'm dancing with.
Yes.
Yes. However, I know how to bring myself down. I've never needed anybody else to go, whoa, slow your horses. I always said that to myself.
Right.
So I don't know where that came from. It was obviously something, down earlier in my life where I brought that. I just have no trigger for it. But I was always, let's just make sure that, on this run through that I'm really working on spotting my turns, because that's a correction that I kept on getting. So I'm going to work on spotting my turns for this run. That was a goal for me.
Right.
Or let's just making sure that whatever it may be within the time. It wasn't the big picture of my goal is to win.
Right.
I've kept that from when I was, when I started doing the dance competitions at 12 to right now.
Yeah.
So that has stayed even within my own competitiveness within going to, auditioning professionally. Right. And it was always, I need to, I need to pay the rent. I need to buy food. And so I need to beat everybody out.
Right.
I need to need the job. With that said, the front of my brain kind of goes,
yes,
let's enjoy and let's meet people and let's watch and see what everybody's doing. Let's listen. Let's make, let's try to really get some eye focus on what are the other things than that bigger, I need to beat everybody out. Where's the goal in that?
Yeah.
So I learned to bring myself down and focus on the smaller things that will help me. Because if you just go for the big one, in lessons learned, it doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're bang on. And I think that's such a good perspective for both dancers and even, teachers.
Leslie, that's the thing, is that when I transferred over from professional dancer going into to teaching, it wasn't just put together a class plan. It has to go beyond that.
Yeah.
If you're really passionate about passing on your education. So, and having these kids really understand not just the movement, but the art.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things where, okay, I'm going to set goals for my students that they understand. It has to be about, the small things, the little rewards that you can along the way.
Yeah.
And passing that whole perception of what goal is has been something I've always kind of strived for.
Yeah.
And the other thing is teaching kids how to listen. I know you think that how do you do that?
Yes. Yes.
There's so many things that you can do. I know we tend to, when they're going across the floor, we can bark at them 5, 6, 7, 8 and yelling.
I know. I try not to do that too much anymore because I kept getting feedback. The kids were like, we don't know what you're saying. And I was like, great. And other kids were like, oh my gosh, she's yelling at me. And I was like, oh, I'm just being loud over the music. So that feedback, I was like, okay, my class runs a little slower, but I'm like, we turn off the music after one side and then talk about it so that they can also be present. Like there's only so much information those kiddos can hold.
That's what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
Present.
Yeah. And that seems like as we're having this discussion, it sounds like a very, well, that word just fell out of my head. I was going to say pervasive, but that's not quite right. But it feels like there we go. Consistent, staying present in this moment while there's still an underpinning. Like I think that competitive drive, which I relate to so hard. And I'm a human who I'm like, that was just the makeup that I got when I got deposited here was like, she fiercely wants to be great and be the best at whatever she can. And then learning to sort of again, like you say, that's the reality when you're working, book the job, pay the rent, get my groceries. So that is underpinning it. But then if you let that drive the car, that's where it can get kind of messy and toxic. And that's where these sort of like, jealousies and the parts of you that maybe aren't as shiny and lovely come out, when really it is about community and connection. And so I totally relate to the like the back brain and the front brain, because you've got to be of two minds a lot of the time.
I know.
To get the best. Yeah.
I think the word competition, I'm competitive, it can be misconstrued too.
Yep.
It was never out of nastiness or
No.
because of, it was always out of, because I want it for myself. I'm
Yes.
really passionate,
Yes. Yeah.
and that perception of somebody else seeing you be that way can come across sometimes harsh or standoffish. So it's how do you be that person that can be that kind of give yourself
Driven.
that push, and but yet still be humble and open to others who are doing the same thing, who want the same thing. Like for me, now not everybody's going to agree. I don't have I'm not, I know, and believe me, I'm okay with that. I don't need everybody to like me.
Right.
I'm not that person.
And it's impossible. So like,
exactly.
I'm learning it. I'm working on it. I'm learning it. But it is tricky to imagine, like, how do I honor that driven part of myself while also being humble, respectful? And I think I'm going to pitch something to you and see how what you think about it. It feels as though in the again, this is just a thought, and nobody has to agree, but there has been a swing of a little bit, I'm going to use like the kumbaya, everyone's a winner, rah, rah, let's all be friends. We're just going to do our best at competition. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think it's good. But now if you do have a drive and you do want to win, there's a new culture and environment where it feels like you can't hold both. And I think that you can, in the same way that, like, if you're training to go to the Olympics, I always talk about hockey. Both of those teams really want to win gold. No one's going to the gold medal match to be like, let's just have fun, boys. Like, are you wild? Like, no. But they also know there's only going to be one winner. That doesn't mean we don't train to be the best. That doesn't mean I'm not going to put my effort and my concentration, like you've been saying, into it. And we let the chips fall as we may. And I don't know. I think there's a little bit of a swing. I hope maybe that's just me and like where I stand, but I really noticed, and I think it also depends on where you work as well. But do you have thoughts about that in terms of like how maybe the culture of competition has shifted to take away some of the sting of quote unquote losing or not getting a gold or what have you?
Well, there's a couple of things, and there's different ways that you can think of this. One, the first thing is that, listen, we are saturated, and I don't have a problem with this because I am one of those people who support the festivals and the competition.
Yes.
In being somebody who was striving to be a professional dancer, I thought it was a great catapult to help with the performance and all that technique that you're learning and striving for and drilling.
Yes.
How do you take that and make it make yourself the artist and put that? So that I love the festivals and I love the competitions. And here's the thing: your studio needs to go to the one that best suits you.
Yes.
We're not all going to the Kumbaya competition, and we're not all going. Everybody has their own each competition or festival director has their own way of how they see their run. That's their business.
Yeah.
So you can choose not to. If that's not for you, then go over here because there's another one over here.
Yes.
Might better suit you.
Yeah.
Now, with all this choice, pick. That's it. I don't think it needs to necessarily be a debate anymore because of all the options that we have. Don't get all your panties in a knot if that doesn't, if it didn't work for you at that competition.
Yeah.
Okay. So now go and figure out which ones, and then stay there. So
because there's a community that builds around competitions, which I adore, and I so appreciate and am on board with. You make such a good point that there are so many options now.
Yeah.
And this, oh my gosh, I'm going to feel like Tamara. Bless Tamara from Shine. Just, you're always in my brain when I start talking about values, because she really made me kind of key into that. And if the studio doesn't know what they stand for and they don't really have a strong point of view or culture or values, then they do kind of feel like, you're chasing it and you've got to go to all the things. But when you do a little extra research and you look into like, what's the vibe of this competition? Like, what are their goals? What are you getting out of when you go to it? And then because that's where you're going to build community, and you're also going to, you're going to find those people at those competitions, as opposed to, like you say, doing it all. But you've got to put in a little bit of work as the studio. Also, as a studio owner, you have to know where to go to get the best experience for you and for the kids and in general. Yeah. Pick. Sherrie says pick.
There's so many great ones. It has to match your vibe of what your studio is about.
Yeah.
And so you need to do a little bit of homework and reading. What are the awards? How do they, getting feedback from others? It just, we're really lucky.
We are. Yeah. It's lovely to see the transformation and evolution of the art form and how we view it, and how, like, what we're able to bring to students now. And then when I talk about it, I do sound like, I'm like, oh dear, like, how ancient do I sound? Like, back in the 1900s, like, when you talk about your experiences.
Those are those strong values.
Yes.
Like, you know what I'm saying? I really don't think that it comes across as an age thing. I really think those are just common sense core values that we should all have or be reminded of when we when we get off track a bit. Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. As we come towards sort of the end, I'm so grateful for like everything you've shared, and like such good wisdom, and you can see why you're like a passionate educator and adjudicator. How do you know, just talking about, your path, what feelings come up for you, or what do you start to notice when you, either currently or like in the past, when you do get away from those core values, when you are off the path, what does that feel like to you? How do you come back to that sense of self, those things that have been, learned into you, as in terms of like helping a dancer who feels like they're off track, or even a teacher? Like, what's the feeling when you've strayed too far away from your core values?
Well, for me, it takes somebody else being honest with me.
Okay.
Sometimes it's not something you can recognize. You're on your path. You think you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You think what you're doing is best for you and everybody else, or whatever the circumstance may be. I learned my lessons through hard knocks, and I think that's okay, and I think everybody should get a taste of a little hard knock. I really believe that that's when we grow the most.
Yeah.
And I look back at all my hard knocks, and there are plenty, is that is where I had my get out. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
how
the light bulbs.
yeah,
Yeah.
the light bulbs, the wow, okay, I need to go apologize to some people, or it could be sometimes, it could be a moment where everybody is saying, no, that does not look good. And I'm like going, you know what? I'm okay with that because I felt it was
Right.
right for me and I felt that I needed to be said.
Yeah.
And I feel that if I didn't say it, that person will not grow from it.
Right.
I've been in circumstances where I've said something, and I feel that with my knowledge, I had every right
Right.
to speak up.
That is something that comes from, I imagine, your career in adjudicating,
Yeah.
with authenticity. And if it sits okay with you,
Yeah.
then that's sort of like, it is a good check-in because you're like, oh, I see. Yeah. Cause I've even come up with some of those moments where someone will maybe just offer some feedback or curiosity and you kind of have to stand and say, no, I stand behind that. Like, I'm okay with that, going forward. But that takes bravery and courage and also a real deep knowing of self. And it sounds like you've spent a lot of time through your lessons, or you say your hard knocks, but that it's really kept you it hasn't worn you down. And that's a really special personality, I think. And something that is like very unique to you and like gives you like your sparkle and your special sauce of like, that's how you learn and that, and that inspires you. And that's how you get better and you grow. I love that. And then you can also bring that with empathy and kindness and compassion to others, because that's how I feel like the way that we like to learn, we figure out how to bring that to others. Do you find that you tend to bring that honesty with authenticity and compassion to others?
Yeah, that's exactly, I think the key word is honesty.
Yeah.
It's and it may sometimes your opinion is going to not going to sit well with others, but I feel like sometimes that you've made them think. Hopefully, you've made them, just take a look at, just maybe, because I've had the same thing reciprocated to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's one of those things, and I don't unless I feel really strong about it. If I'm humming and hawing about it, then I probably shouldn't be saying it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. And you are also a person, I will say from my personal experience, which I also love so much, where, if you're humming and hawing, then it's a no. And sometimes it's a yes, I want to say this. And how can I craft it in a way? Like, how will it be received? And that's been really fun. Like, I appreciate that. And I'm like, oh, like, this is a very thoughtful person.
I've noticed that you're really, really good at that. That is something that I am working on still. As a judge, I have dyslexia, so I have trouble sometimes finding the right words. It takes me a little bit longer.
Yeah,
and when
I feel that.
time crunch on a microphone,
it's atrocious.
A couple of times going, I know there's a better word for this. So if you explain yourself in the moment, I think hopefully there's a little bit of forgiveness from the teacher that's listening.
And yes. And
being honest.
Intention.
Intention.
You can tell when someone's giving critiques from a tired, malicey, but when you're like, I don't mean this. That's the first word. And I think that's what's so great about the feedback that we're able to offer on the mics with the videos, is that you can hear the intention of the speaker. There's more depth to it as opposed to just like the notes on the page where you go, oh, okay, well, like,
Yeah.
Forget my dance. Like, you know, like it can come. But now that I've done an event where I am just writing, I can't speak in the same way that I would on the mic. And it did feel like a bit aggressive and like, but I'm like, oh, I don't want to give this person carpal tunnel. Like I was like, it was such a different experience. So,
Okay, you know what? I'm so glad that you just said that. Let's just like talk about that for 1 minute.
Please. I'm obsessed.
Do you not? I am sitting there, I'm watching this dancer, but at the same time, I'm watching the person's hand like seize up, the knuckles start to swell, and I'm like so feeling for this person that I need to grab the pen and paper and finish off. And then I know it slows it down, but then if I can keep all those, which I am good at, I can keep all those notes in my head and write them all down.
Yeah.
So I really, there's this kind of, and I'm so glad
It's a skill. Holy smokes. Because I won't say I was a different adjudicator. My authenticity and who I was, still came through in my notes, but how I communicated them, it was much more to the point. And I'm like, which was a great reflection for me to see as a kid. I was like, oh, those adjudicators weren't mad at me. It's not that they didn't like what I was doing. You think it's hard to talk, like give feedback live 3 minutes in a microphone when you're watching, translating, trying to find the most efficient way to send it to someone who's less stenographer essentially for you. There's like so many moving parts. And so you just say like, great entrance, stronger walks. Like that's how it becomes. And so if you're a dancer hearing this and you're getting written notes for the first time, that adjudicator is nicer than they seem on paper. You're just struggling with their time because it's tricky. It's so tricky.
Dear teachers, please be kind when it comes to written. Okay, we really are trying our best in keeping in mind that our poor writer is.
Yeah. Yes. A big time. I think that has been, I mean, obviously adjudicating maybe isn't for everybody, but I will say my mindset shift and how I approach working with my kids now that I sit on the other side of the table, I'm like, holy man, you guys, like it's been so eye-opening and like so great.
But Les, that don't mind if I call you Les.
I'm obsessed. You know what? It happened all the time when I was younger, and like hardly nobody calls me that anymore. So I'm obsessed. Yes.
Okay, cool, good. Is that's the way that we never had Mike. Mike's was like a
brand new.
So it's a person doing like short form, whatever points, to all of a sudden having to speak on mic. That is a whole other. Right. Yeah. And for someone who, you know, for me, for speaking, I was just like, I had to take a break because if this is the new way, I'm not too sure. I had to practice, and I still practice that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Diction. I have terrible diction. My pronunciation, especially when you're in your like 6th hour.
Yeah. There are times where I'll be talking and I just like, okay, guys, sorry, my brain stopped there for a minute. Because the other thing too that I really enjoy is, hi, I'm a person. Yes. And I know that this idea and word of adjudicator, I know for me as a kid, created such, similarly how I like thought of you and like think of like a lot of like, you know, names in the dance community is you kind of give them this little platform and you put them up on this little pedestal. And then I became the adjudicator and I was like, y'all, I am a stranger. You don't know me from Adam. Like I'm just a person trying to do my best. And I got distracted like a squirrel because I saw something else and I was talking about something else. So like the humanity goes both ways.
I know. But with all that said, I love it. I love bringing my kind of my eye, from my experience, what I see, things that I think that, you know, need to be worked on, or maybe I'm helping a teacher out by saying it 10 times on him, you know, or maybe I'm saying it a different way that might help, or maybe it's that, you know, I've had so many great moments. I don't know, there's a handful that I've been backstage and somebody has said, and they're now 15, and I had judged them when they were like 11, and they're like, you kept me dancing, you were so, you gave me a award, you recognized me, and I'm like going, oh, what, see, that's why.
That's exactly right.
And you're not going to hit everybody, but that person,
it's powerful. It's very powerful, and it's clear that your experience, and that's exactly what we bring to everything that we do, whether it's a job, whether it's the studio, whether it's adjudicating. You are bringing your experiences and your lens and offering what you know, and then also like another piece of the puzzle, like, have you looked at it from this lens? And it's invaluable.
And your lens is going to be different than my lens when we're all sitting at the table, which makes it such a great opportunity for learning lessons, learning, a tool. So let's make sure we're all being, focused within it. Again, it can't just be about, I've learned some choreography and I'm going to do it on stage. Let's also listen. And let's also watch.
Y'all, Sherrie says listen. Sherrie says listen, you guys.
And let's again, that community. Let's make some friends in that time. And I know it doesn't always have to be kumbaya, but let's make sure that there's a splash of it in every competition that you're going to.
Yeah.
Or else, it's dance. It's
Yep. Yes, exactly. 100%. Yeah. And it's nice when you get to see, you kind of have your competition friends, they're going to be there. It's that community, and seeing those people, every April you're going to see them, which is really lovely. A couple quick sort of like lightning round ish, not really but yes or no's, or like quick things.
No.
I know.
Okay. All right.
I know. I would also feel the same way if I was on the other side.
Right.
What's the biggest lesson that you've learned through dance?
God, it's so hard because there's so many.
I know. But what's one that, clearly you've heard a lot.
Through dance, in my dance career and dancing, I was told once by the very wonderful, beautiful Brian Foley that I needed to recognize that I was better than good. And that, just those words and what they meant to me at that time, again, was it takes confidence to stay in it, because you can get eaten alive. And that one really, so I learned, I really did learn how to appreciate my talent and what I'm doing, and, how to keep moving forward with it.
I love that. Talent comes with hard work. It's not like, sometimes it exists without, but it only gets better than good when you put in the work, for sure. Yeah. If you could leave, there have been so many nuggets of wisdom. I can't wait to go watch this multiple times when I need reassurance. What is a piece of wisdom that you'd like to share, whether it's with art, like dancers, teachers, adjudicators, dance parents? I don't know, but what's sort of one nugget of wisdom you'd like to leave folks with?
It's going back to our topic of conversation of listening. It's not just the student listening to the teachers, it's the teachers listening to students. It's it's listening to yourself when you're on your professional path. It's listening to yourself and boosting yourself up. Say you can do it. Listen to your gut. That word is really powerful and can do a lot.
If you're not used to listening to your gut, it just takes practice. I'm practicing that.
Good. And that's a goal.
It is. Yeah. It's one thing to think about it. It's another thing to practice it. But yeah, it's true. Listen, I love that. I'm so grateful that there's another human out there trying to get kids to listen. But in a different, like, not just like listen to what I say, but on a deeper level, which I think is
on a deeper level. Yeah.
so useful.
Yes.
Amazing. Sherrie, you're phenomenal. I know you are traveling right now. I don't know if people know this, but outside of all her artistic pursuits, Sherrie and her partner travel and take care of pets all over the wandering sitters, right?
Right.
I love, so if you want to follow their adventures and see what they do, or if you need, I don't know if you need more clients of like pet sitting.
I have to make sure that we're updating our website because we're so bad at that.
It's okay, it happens. But you can find them. I'll link there. Do you have a Wandering Sitters Instagram, correct?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Sure.
It's, if you enjoy pictures of pets and seeing the Sherrie travel all over, that is, and again, it just, people contain multitudes, and I love it. We're not just these monolithic sort of like dance art people. We've got all these beautiful parts of us. Sherrie, thank you so much for taking time for me, because again, I know you are on a delicious working holiday, and this discussion has been so invigorating and so lovely, and I really appreciate your time.
Oh, likewise, Leslie. I'm so grateful that you asked me. You know, I'm always I feel so blessed that I get to share, and for me, I've done amazing things. You know, I haven't danced with some great video artist or anything like that, but I'm very proud to be a Canadian. Dancer, and have had a long, we're, in my eyes, successful
Very
career
successful
in doing it, and transitioning into everything that I love. And I hope everybody out there pursuing, finds their niche, finds their path, and stays the course.
Yeah.
Amazing. So
Amazing.
thank you so much.
Awesome.
I adore you. You're lovely.
Oh, thanks, Sherrie. Likewise.
I forgot that you're both Saskatchewan people. You're Saskatchewan people.
We are Saskatchewan. I own it. I'm going there on Sunday.